I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
Welcome back to Hooked on the First Line, where we analyze some of the best first lines in all literature. And the reason we do this is because to understand and to analyze the first line of something helps us as creators, artists, writers, whatever. The first line is the most important line maybe in the book, next to the last line, because if the first line's great, get to read the second line, the third line, the fourth line. And we all want to create things that people continue to either view or read or whatever. So, Cal, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Do you ever want to write a novel?
I think when I was young, I had it in my mind, but I always felt that I needed more experience with life. And then as my life pushed forward, a lot of things got piled on. And so if I do, it will be something that happens toward the end.
Yeah, that could be. I had the ego and hubris to think that I could write a novel at a young age. So I wrote novel after novel after novel when I was from the ages of like 21 to 26. And none of them were good. None of them were published, but maybe it helped me hone my skills a little bit. One thing I realized when I was first starting to write is that you have to constantly read so that you're always feeling juiced up and inspired. Like reading gave me energy to write, particularly when I read great books. That's why I love analyzing these first lines, because I would think about them so much at that time.
Well, the line I picked is actually very easy to identify.
Let's do your line.
Okay. It's a very simple, it's a short line, but imagine you pick up the book. There's chapter 1, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins. Once you read that line, whoever's voice that is in trouble.
Yeah, right. Because also the name Lolita is it's not like a serious name somehow. It's like a very playful name. So the fact that his love is more about the fire in his loins, that it's not going to be a, how should I say, long, deeply maturing relationship.
No, and I know this is all about the first lines, but uh, I'll just read on because it addresses everything you just said.
Yeah.
So, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul. Lolita, the tip of the tongue, taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lo, li, ta.
That's really beautiful too. The read that last line again, the 3-step tap.
The tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lo, li, ta.
So this is Vladimir Nabokov. He wrote Lolita in English. It's one of the books he wrote in English. Many of his first novels were written in Russian, and then he moved to the U.S. and his later novels, including Lolita, were written in English. So it's interesting, the consonants, the use of the T over and over again. That is interesting there because it almost sounds like someone tapping down steps. The t t t.
And you know what? He keeps it up in the next paragraph. She was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. Man, what does that tell you?
I know. Was she short, or obviously we're getting to the point that she was young?
But there you go.
And also he's so verbal, it kind of implies a little bit of age to him.
And manipulation, the ability to manipulate, because he's very adept at language. And now
Yeah.
you've got a woman, young girl, we don't know, 4 feet 10 in one sock. I mean, obviously, this is not a 42-year-old woman.
Right. And also there's the kind of contradictions. Like first he says the light of my life, but then he says the fire, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins. And then the second one, my sin, my soul. So there's, everything's a contradiction. Let's say I'm acknowledging my wife in a book. I may have an acknowledgments page. I'm not going to say fire of my loins. I'm going to say light of my life, my soul, and then the person's name. So it's a contradiction in every sentence, or at least it's a positive, negative in each sentence.
And look how he continues. So we already saw she was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line, but in my arms, she was always Lolita.
Yeah.
Man, this guy is in deep trouble.
Right, because she was Dolly at school. She's 4'10", so now we definitely know she's young. Again, we could kind of assume he's older just by the literary aspect of the poetic aspect of the writing. Again, I really like the fact that the third sentence, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps, I like how that sounds, just saying it out loud sounds like what he's writing about. Like it sounds like someone stepping down steps, the ta. And then the fact that, she was Dolly at school. So that's like with her friends. She's low in the morning, but in his arms, Lolita, which is the most kind of seductive of the versions of her name. Again, I like these first lines where you could kind of get a sense of what the entire novel is going to be like from the very first few lines. And every line makes you want to read more. So like fire of my loins, obviously we want to read more of that. My sin, my soul. So he's going to be tortured at some point, tortured emotionally or mentally. And then again, just the playfulness of how he's, saying the next things, the 3 steps on the tip of his tongue, and so on.
Well, you definitely get the feeling when you get to the end of that second paragraph that this guy is about to take a tumble down those steps.
I just pulled it up. He says you can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style. Which, by the way, I don't know if you can always count on a murderer for that. We already know he's unreliable. It's interesting that maybe we can't count on a murderer for fans. I don't necessarily associate murderers with fancy prose styles.
Well, I mean, that sentence alone, I mean, you could have used that as a first sentence, but it would not have had the same impact because once you've set it up with this girl, this woman, this object of desire, and you see her in all these different ways, and now the word murder is thrown into it, you gotta keep going.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. What would have been the difference if he had started with that line? You can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style. I guess since we haven't seen an example of the fancy prose style yet, and we don't have a reason yet to continue.
What and it's the sentence is perfectly placed where it is because he's got you. This is sort of like watching a boxer throwing 8 shots to set up the 9th one that's on the jaw, which is you can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style, because he's got you leaning in. And then when he hits you with that line, you're saying, oh shit, how far down the steps does he tumble?
Yeah. And so we basically have sex and sin in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, we firmly believe and are told she's basically younger than him. And then in the third paragraph, somehow there's a murder that has happened. We don't know who was murdered. We know he did the murder, but we don't know who was murdered. Is it Lolita? How is he caught? Because he's caught. Actually, it's revealed in the next paragraph that he's testifying to a jury. And we know we're in for a ride now.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but the last sentence of the intro is, look at this tangle of thorns. So he's basically just invited you in, and you got to go. You got to go. He's a master of that. There's another book. I don't know. Are we allowed to on this podcast?
Yes.
Just reference.
We're allowed to do anything we want.
Okay. I want to reference the same author because he's a master at opening books, Nabokov. And this book that I got in front of me is called Laughter in the Dark.
Oh, yeah.
And he starts it with a sentence that is not what I would classify as an amazing sentence. It's a very routine sentence. And it just starts, once upon a time there lived in Berlin, Germany, a man called Albinus. Okay, so where does that take you? It's almost like you're being invited into a fairy tale and you're saying, all right, there's a once upon a time, so what's the next sentence going to be? And then the writing continues. He was rich, respectable, happy. One day, he abandoned his wife for the sake of a youthful mistress. He loved, was not loved, and his life ended in disaster.
Yeah. So that one, it's almost like he sets you up to be like, oh, okay, one time there was this rich guy, but then he kind of takes you, he sort of sets you up to feel good about what's happening. Like you say, like a fairy tale almost. And then he immediately plunges it into darkness.
And basically delivers the whole story for you there. So you have every reason to say, okay, I know what's going to happen. He was not loved and his life ended in disaster. But look at what he does in the second paragraph. This is the whole of the story, and we might have left it at that had there not been profit and pleasure in the telling. And although there is plenty of space on a gravestone to contain, bound in moss, the abridged version of a man's life, detail is always welcome. He's hooked you. He's told you everything you need to know. And yet you're smiling. And I smiled when I hit the words, this is a whole of the story, and we might have left it at that had there not been profit and pleasure in the telling.
And there's something else interesting there, which is that he starts this off in this very, just a very basic third person voice. Okay, there's a man, Albinus, he was rich, his wife, he loved, was not loved. But then he gets kind of meta, and it becomes a sort of plural first person. This is the whole of the story, and we might have left it at that. So now, kind of this interesting mix of what person is this story being told in is also compelling. Like, who is we? Why isn't it I might have left it at that? And then there's also this meta aspect where the writer doesn't usually, most books we read, the writer doesn't usually refer to the fact that this is a book you're reading that he wrote. So like when you read a John Grisham novel, and by the way, no knock against John Grisham. I've read every John Grisham novel. I love legal thrillers. But you don't say, John Grisham would never say, you know, oh, I could have left this novel at, young lawyer gets rich and famous and then has disaster, so I decided to keep going. He never refers to the author in the writing of a book, and most authors don't. But this is a very interesting experiment Nabokov is doing.
Yeah, and it's basically showing a strength and control of the language and where he's going. He's narrating. It's his tale. You hear it right off the top. He may be doing this just to make money.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You're intrigued and are coming along.
Yeah, and by the way, this is another, like this, Lolita, and I don't know if you ever read his book, Ada, but they're all examples of someone loving essentially either a little girl or someone much younger.
Yeah, well, it's pretty obvious that there's something deep going on.
I think this is why Nabokov never won the Nobel Prize, actually, is because there's a little bit, too much speculation that there was something kind of wrong with him.
It might have spooked a bunch of people. You're right.
One of my favorite novels, there's quite a few novels where chess is involved. Like we all saw the TV show The Queen's Gambit, which was based on a novel written in the early 80s called The Queen's Gambit. And one of my favorite novels by Nabokov is one called The Defense, about someone who's at the level of a world chess champion who gradually goes insane. And Nabokov himself was a chess master when he was younger.
I didn't. I never read that. So
it's one of my favorite novels ever.
You know what? Thank you, because you've just proved the merit of this podcast, because you've got me very curious to read that book.
And then if you want the extreme Lolita style, there's Ada, which was not only someone loving a little girl, but that someone is, if I remember correctly, that someone is the little girl's brother. So it's almost like a trilogy of novels. Laughter in the Dark, I think, was first, then Lolita, then Ada.
Well, it's interesting because when you pair them or when you put them together, it really does give you a look into the writer who wrote it. And I'm going to read that book so that I can step back and see what's at the depth.
This is such a valuable service for all business owners, big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. I wish I had this in the many different businesses that I've started. Sometimes it seems like your business is humming, but then suddenly you don't understand it. You're starting to fall behind. You're not understanding where your costs are, where your revenues are, where your payments are. Teams are buried in all sorts of like BS work, and you can't seem to close the books. So you need like one dashboard, one source of truth. I'm jealous of this business, NetSuite from Oracle, of course, NetSuite by Oracle. I wish I'd come up with this idea. It's a brilliant concept to have all your business intelligence on one dashboard. This is why you need to know these three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. So 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle.
NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. One, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, your KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/James. That's netsuite.com/James to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/James. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
I just saw a quote that said something simple along the lines of, once you see what's underneath the surface never looks the same again.
It's true. And the fact that there is a surface, I think, makes a work of art interesting. The fact that there is layers deeper. Have you ever watched the TV show Lost?
No.
So I love this show. Again, a lot of people don't like it for various reasons. And there's hundreds of videos on YouTube explaining different aspects of Lost, because there's that much depth to it. It's really interesting. But I've watched the whole series. It's 6 seasons of 20 episodes each. I've watched the whole series at least 4 or 5 times.
What is it that's so compelling?
I won't go into the whole plot or anything, but there's layer after layer after layer after layer. there's little clues from the first few scenes even that don't become more clear until the sixth season. And obviously you don't remember, oh, that's why this woman was holding her wrist
Right.
in the middle of the very first show of the first season. So you have to watch it again in order to start connecting the dots.
That's great writing. Often when I go back and watch a movie a second time, I see the setups that are just either overlooked or we're focusing on something else, but they're there, they're planted, and subliminally we're going with them. And that's why quite often seeing a movie the second time is a really enjoyable experience.
Yeah, every series that I thought was a great series, I've probably watched them all 3 or 4 times. Like Mad Men, I've watched easily 3 or 4 times. Rome, which was a 2-season series on HBO, I've watched that probably like 5 times. Breaking Bad, Battlestar Galactica, these are all like my favorite series. I've watched them all many times. And same with books. I will read a great book over and over and over again. There's one book, collection of short stories actually, that I lent you, Jesus' Son by Dennis Johnson. I've easily read that 200 times.
Well, I can see why, because as soon as I started to read it, I was just kind of overwhelmed by the great lines. Also, I got to admit that it's something that if I had read decades ago, I think it would have had much more impact on me than reading it from a vantage point of having read a lot of books and kind of getting at where he was going, where if I had read him at a very early age, I would have not had an idea where he was going. And he would have just be transporting me to these places. But through an older point of view, I have a sense of where he's taken me, even though I'm not quite sure. And then when the line explodes on the page, I just smile and said, oh, yeah, that's great.
We talked in the last episode about the importance of last lines, even though this is a podcast about first lines. He is the master of the last line. Like, I just love all his last lines. And also, very important thing that he does, which also you see in a lot of great literature, ranging from James Joyce's Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man to Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea to Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow. But what I'm talking about is that the style itself is almost a character in the story. So again, when you read like a legal thriller, the style is very like, there really is no style. And that's done with a purpose, because you want to focus on the fact that it's a thriller, not that it's this stylistically told story. But with Jesus' Son, and another one is a Million Little Pieces by James Frey, is like this. The style itself changes throughout the book as the character changes. But again, the style it's written in changes as the character evolves.
Well, I think it's a good way to circle back to Nabokov, because that is at the center of his opening. There was just a sense of style that you are reading Nabokov. You're not going to read anything like this from any other author. It's totally unique to him, which is, in my mind, a great calling card. And that same thing with the Gabriel Garcia Marquez first line of 100 Years of Solitude. Nobody else has written like that. And it's the very essence of style converging with all the other magic that makes you lean forward.
Well, I've got a great one for episode 3. I'm looking forward to telling you it.
All right. Now, I can't wait. Let's see where this goes.
Whether it's your first home or your forever home, it's the heart of your celebrations. And at NFM, we want to help you save on every room this season. Shop our huge selection of furniture, appliances, electronics, and flooring. Bring it all together with help from our design experts. With guaranteed low prices and financing options, keep your budget on track. And save time with our pickup and delivery options so that you can make yourself at home where traditions start. Only at NFM.
Diving deep into your passions has never been easier. Thanks to Amazon Prime. You get all-in-one access to the things you need, so you can get more out of the things you love. With a range of services including Prime Video, Amazon Music, and Prime Fast free shipping. Amazon Prime is like your personal mission control for all the things that inspire. From shopping and streaming to saving, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into. It's on Prime.